Welcome back to History Otherwise, where we explore the paths not taken in history.
It is good to be back, and today we are standing on a particularly precarious edge.
We really are. We're looking down at a moment where the world as we know it, the modern, industrial, the English-speaking superpower world, it nearly vanished.
It's a scenario historians have obsessed over for centuries.
Absolutely. And it's a fascinating precipice. We often look back at history as this solid road.
Inevitable, almost.
Exactly. Inevitable. But when you zoom in on the winter of 1745, you realize the whole thing was balanced on a knife edge.
Which brings us to the Jacobite Rising of 1745.
Right. Now, I think most of us know the school books version, or maybe the Outlander version. Bonnie Prince Charlie lands, marches south, gets cold feet.
Turns back and gets crushed at Culloden. End of story.
That's the tragedy we know. But today, for this deep dive, we're asking, what if they didn't turn back?
What if the Stuarts actually won? And to really get our heads around the scale of this, we need to break it down, I think, into three distinct movements.
Okay, so first, we have to look at the single moment where history pivots.
A conversation in a room in Derby.
Then we'll look at the immediate violent consequences, the collapse of London.
The financial system, the whole thing. And third, and this is maybe the most significant part, we look long-term.
The reshaping of the globe. The undoing of the British Empire before it even really began.
It changes everything. The American Revolution, the Industrial Revolution, all of it.
It's a massive topic. So let's start with the reality on the ground. December 5th, 1745. Set the scene for us.
The Jacobite army is parked at Derby. And for context, you have to remember, they are just 125 miles from London.
That's dangerously close. A few days march.
A few days hard marching. Now, I have to admit, when I first started reading about this, I had this image of, a rabble.
Wild men in kilts, waving swords.
That's the popular myth, and it was certainly the propaganda of the time. But modern historians, people like Christopher Duffy, Murray Pettick, they've just dismantled that image.
So it wasn't a mob.
Not at all. It was a sophisticated mobile force. Pittock points out it included Lowland Scots, Episcopalians, even English volunteers.
So not just Highlanders.
No, not by a long shot. They had a proper divisional system, logistics. This was a serious military machine. They'd already won at Preston Pans. They were a legitimate threat.
Okay, so they're professional, they're winning, they're on London's doorstep. But inside the camp at Derby, the vibe isn't exactly celebratory, is it?
Far from it. The atmosphere is poisonous. They're at Exeter House for a council of war, small, smoke-filled room, freezing cold, probably.
And the tension is palpable.
You could cut it with a dirk. It's a massive clash of personalities.
This is the showdown, right? The prince versus his general.
Exactly. On one side, you have Lord George Murray. He's the military brain here. He's looking at a map, and he sees a trap.
He knows there are 3 Hanoverian armies closing in.
3 of them. You got Wade to the north, the Duke of Cumberland, the King's Son to the west, and another force gathering at Finchley to defend London.
So Murray's argument is basically, we're walking into a bag.
Precisely. We'll be surrounded and destroyed. We must retreat to Scotland. His logic is sound.
And in our actual history, his logic wins. They turn around, and it ends at Culloden.
But here is the pivot. Here is where our timeline snaps. In this history otherwise, Prince Charles refuses to fold.
He plays a trump card.
He does. He produces a letter.
A letter from France.
Yes, claiming that the Duc de Richelieu is preparing 10,000 French regulars to land in Kent.
Now, I have to ask, is this letter real, or is he just bluffing?
And that's the great mystery. It could be a forgery, a misunderstood report. Maybe the prince just wants it to be true, but in that moment, the truth of the letter matters less than its effect.
It changes the psychology of the room.
Completely. It sways the wavering commanders, the Duke of Perth, O'Sullivan. The logic shifts from, we are trapped, to,
we are the hammer, and the French are the anvil.
That's the idea. If the French land, the government forces are split, the vote flips. By a narrow margin, they march on.
They choose the jaws of the enemy.
And that single decision changes the world. Because the moment they step south, the panic in London goes from a simmer to a full-on boil.
Let's talk about that panic. This is Black Friday, right?
Yeah.
December 6, 1745.
Yes. In our timeline, the news was that they were retreating. Relief. In this timeline, the news hits the coffee houses. The Highlanders are in Northampton. They're advancing.
And the first casualty isn't a soldier, it's the economy.
Immediately, you get a run on the Bank of England. Now, in the real mild panic, the bank directors used a clever trick.
The sixpences.
They paid people in sixpences, literally had tellers count out thousands of tiny coins to waste time to slow the bleeding.
A very British way to handle a crisis.
It works for a mild panic. It does not work when an invading army is 3 days away. The dam bursts. The sixpence trick fails. The Bank of England suspends payments.
And we have to pause here because this is crucial. The British state at this time, the Whig government, it was all built on credit.
The government is the debt. The wealthy merchants in the city of London, they'd lent massive sums to the government. Their security was the Protestant succession.
So if a Stuart king comes in, a king who owes them nothing,
Their debt becomes worthless paper. So when the bank stops paying, credit just evaporates.
the economy flatlines.
Instantly. Commerce stops. And when the money goes, the king goes.
King George II.
We forget he was German. He was the Elector of Hanover first, King of Britain second. He always kept his bags half-packed.
So he sees the financial collapse and he just runs.
He doesn't stay to fight. He packs the royal treasure onto barges at St. James's Palace and flees down the Thames to Hanover.
An incredible image, the king abandoning his capital. That must leave a massive power vacuum.
It's catastrophic. The government is paralyzed. You know that famous Hogarth painting, the March of the Guards to Finchley?
Yeah, the one where they all look like drunken buffoons.
Well, in this timeline, it becomes a documentary. Without the king, without pay, the defense at Finchley just melts away.
So there's no Battle of London.
No. When the Jacobites enter on December 9th, it's silent. It's an eerie, surreal occupation.
Men in strange clothes, speaking a language that might as well be Martian to a Londoner.
Marching through a terrified city, the king is gone, the army has disbanded.
But, and this is the key, inside taking the capital isn't the end of the war.
No. It's the trigger for a much, much worse one.
The Second English Civil War.
Precisely. You have a new king proclaimed, James III, with Charles as regent. But the country is fundamentally broken in two.
Because more than half the country hates them.
Hates them and fears them. You got the ruined financiers, the Whig politicians being arrested. But the big one is religion. This is the great fear of 1688 coming true.
The fear of a Catholic monarch.
For decades, English identity had been built on being Protestant. Now you have a Catholic king crowned at Westminster, probably by a non-juring bishop.
And non-juring means what exactly?
These were the clergy who refused to swear allegiance to the Hanoverian regime, the hardliners. To the average person, this looks like a hostile takeover by religious extremists.
So the country splits.
Violently. The Royal Navy is very Protestant, very loyal to the old regime. It refuses to recognize the new king. Admiral Vernon takes the fleet and blockades the Thames.
So London is occupied, but now it's starving.
And the butcher, the Duke of Cumberland, he's still out there. He regroups his forces at York, and the war changes character. It stops being about a dynasty.
It becomes a war of survival.
It becomes Protestant mercantile Britain versus Catholic agrarian Britain.
And then the French actually show up. The letter wasn't a lie after all.
Or maybe success breeds success. Seeing London fall, King Louis XV finally commits. He sends the 10,000 troops, and here's the bitter irony for the Stuarts.
The French save them militarily.
But destroy them politically.
Because now it looks like an invasion.
Exactly. Imagine it. French soldiers marching through the home counties. It radicalizes the English population against them. They might win a battle in Northamptonshire, but they are ruling a broken nation at the point of a bayonet.
They're seen as French puppets.
Totally. They've won the war, but the cost is everything. And now they have to govern this wreck.
This is where the constitutional changes come in.
Right. They have to rebuild the state. Charles needs money, so he recalls Parliament. They reach a messy compromise. He accepts the Bill of Rights, mostly.
But he repeals the Act of Settlement.
He has to. That was the law saying only a Protestant could be king. But the big one, the one that really ends Great Britain, is Scotland.
He keeps his promise.
He keeps his promise. The Act of Union of 1707 is repealed.
So the United Kingdom is dead.
Effectively, yes. It reverts to a personal union. Two separate countries, one king. Scotland gets its parliament back in Edinburgh.
Now, I know some people listening might think, well, that sounds great. But practically, what does that look like in 1746?
Economically, it's chaos. Britain is no longer a unified trading bloc. Tariffs return. If you're a merchant in Manchester trying to sell to Glasgow, you're suddenly dealing with customs, different regulations.
Smuggling becomes rampant.
The whole economic engine that was driving Britain towards being a superpower is just taken apart.
And this fragmentation, it doesn't stop at the shoreline. This is the part of the research that really blew my mind. The American Revolution still happens, but it's totally different.
It happens decades early, and you have to look at who the colonists were, especially in New England.
Puritans, hardline Protestants.
Exactly. They left England to escape what they saw as popery. For them, a Catholic Stuart king isn't just a political problem, he's the Antichrist.
So it's not no taxation without representation.
No, it's no popery, it's a spiritual war. This changes everything. Take George Washington. In our timeline, he's a loyal British soldier. In this one, he's probably fighting for the Virginia House of Burgesses against the king.
And Benjamin Franklin.
Shifts to independence decades earlier. The colonies revolt to protect their religion.
And I assume France is just loving this.
France is delighted. They support the rebels, not because they love liberty, but because they want Britain weak. America becomes a fractured collection of states, dependent on French aid. It never becomes a superpower.
It's the theme here. Britain becomes a mess. America becomes a mess. Who wins?
France. France wins the 18th century.
Walk us through the geopolitics of that.
Well, with the Stuarts on the throne, Britain abandons its alliance with Austria. That flips the balance of power. France wins the War of the Austrian Succession. The Treaty of Aix-la-Chapelle is a total French triumph.
So Britain becomes a client state of France.
Essentially, yes, a satellite. The Royal Navy is neglected because the Stuarts don't trust it. And without the Navy, there's no global trade. No empire in India or Canada.
And this brings us to what might be the most profound loss. The Industrial Revolution just doesn't happen.
This is the real tragedy. You have to ask, why did it happen in Britain? It needed a specific set of conditions. You needed deep capital markets, secure property rights.
And a culture of innovation, which was mostly driven by the nonconformists.
The Quakers, the Unitarians, the people who built the banks and the ironworks. In this Stuart Restoration, these people are persecuted again. The capital flees. Property rights are insecure.
So the steam engine, the factories, they just don't happen.
Not in Britain, maybe in France, maybe the Netherlands, but much later. Britain remains an agrarian society. It looks more like Spain, a quiet, second-rate power.
And the Scottish Enlightenment, Adam Smith.
Another casualty. In our timeline, after Scotland lost, the elite turned their energy to philosophy, to commerce. In this timeline, they're the winners. They're busy being soldiers and courtiers in London.
They're governing, not inventing.
Exactly. Adam Smith probably never writes The Wealth of Nations because its arguments don't make sense in this fractured, protectionist world.
It's a staggering thought, a victory that destroys the future. So when we step back and compare our timeline, Timeline A, you get the British Empire, but also the Highland clearances, the slave trade, the Victorian slums.
High peaks and very, very deep valleys.
And Timeline B, this history otherwise, is quieter. No dark satanic mills, but no global democracy, no technological explosions.
And looking forward into the 19th century of this alternate timeline, you have to mention Napoleon.
Oh, right. I hadn't even thought that far ahead.
If Britain is weak, there's no one to stop him. No Royal Navy to win at Trafalgar. No Wellington at Waterloo. Napoleon likely conquers this weaker, divided Britain.
Wow. The 19th century belongs entirely to France.
It really makes you realize how fragile our reality is. We assume the modern world was inevitable.
That we were destined to have steam engines and the internet.
But we weren't. It all hung in a conversation in a room in Derbyshire. If one man had been more persuasive, or if one letter had been believed, we'd be living in a very different world.
Because history might have turned otherwise. That is a heavy thought to leave you with.
Indeed. It forces you to appreciate the complexity of the world we do have.
If you enjoyed this deep dive into the paths not taken, make sure you are following the show. We have plenty more what-ifs to explore. Thanks for listening to History Otherwise.
We'll catch you in the next timeline.